So, welcome back, everybody. We continue towards the end of chapter 44. As you noticed, there was quite a few classes in this very chapter, but we move along. I just also want to take note that I noticed in the previous class, the very end was cut off. Even though it wasn't a new topic that was spoken, it was just a culmination of the previous topic. So nothing really new. If you felt you were missing something by watching those who follow online, there was just, again, literally a few seconds before the end, though we will begin with a text where we left off, in other words, to include this which was cut off accordingly. So, as we always mention, especially for the newcomers, and namely for the newcomers, you can follow these classes online on the tanyaonline.com website, as well. For that matter, it's, as we mentioned as well quite a few times, that it's easy to follow because there's a separate scroll bar for the text. You can see all the previous classes of this chapter, and for that matter, from the very beginning of Tanya, also a separate scroll bar that is simply a click away that you can find all the classes from pretty much from the beginning. So we're holding on page Samach Dalid in the original text. So it's 126, and then Samach Dalid on the left side. Where we left off is Mudazais. Again, we did read the text, but for those who follow online, that piece was cut off. So we're going to start from those words, which is 5 lines from the top of the page. And again, you could follow in the English text, corresponding English text accordingly. Mudazais, it's known, what it says in Tikkunim, ki ba'elam habriya. Tikkunim is a component of Zayar. Ki ba'elam habriya mekanano tamon emaylo, that in the world of Bria, Nes, there, the Supreme Mother, which we spoke last week and in the past, referring to Bina, Shehi's Beinanus Beinin Sof Chaya Chaim Baruch Hu, which is the meditation of the pondering in the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the life of lives, which means the source of all life. Baruch Hu, blessed be He. Like Eliyahu said in the famous Pasach Eliyahu, as famous, we recite the Pasach Eliyahu every Friday before Mincha. So in that Pasach Eliyahu writes, Bina Libo. Naturally, we say Eliyahu. It's Eliyahu Navi compiled this Pasach Eliyahu, which again we recite on a weekly basis before Mincha. In many versions, I do notice it's not in all nuschaot, not in all versions, but many recite the Pasach Eliyahu, namely in the Sfard custom. So there, in that Pasach Eliyahu, it says Bina Libo Uvahalev Mevin, the heart's association with understanding, with intellect, with meditation. What's the connection? This is intellect and this is heart, emotion. So he writes there, Ubohalev Mevin, in order to ignite the heart, there has to be clarity in the matter which you're meditating on, in order that the heart should be attracted to this, to gravitate to this concept, to this idea. So in the overall, we mentioned this exists in every area of life. When you understand a concept thoroughly, you gravitate to it, you're able to emote with it. One way or another, you're able to develop an emotion to it, that you like it because you understand how much it can benefit you, it can contribute to all this which you aspire to, and then consequently, you're driven to it. So that's the connection of Lev and maybe, but the Zayar, the Eliyahu Navi writes it clear that Bina Liba, that the Lev Bina is directly not only connected to the Lev, his expression is the Lev is Bina, or Bina is the Lev. The understanding, the Bina, is really the Lev, and namely the way Chassidus explains the difference between Bina and Chochmah. Bina's expansion is dissecting a concept to its maximum detail. So when you understand it thoroughly, it kind of takes you over. The concept becomes truly alive because you understand it so thoroughly, so clearly. So right away, it captures the heart immediately. And in this context, naturally, we're not going to repeat. We elaborated on this much last week, which this whole concept of Bina in Elam Habriya, and then Hashem's Midas, nesting, the Lashon in Kabbalah and Tikkunim, nests in Elam HaYetzirah, and so on. We mentioned even last week that we have to be one way or another brief because it's spoken about the very first time in the 16th chapter, and then in the 39th chapter, which, as you recall, those who follow, and those who would like to see a bit more about this concept, brought in Tikkunim, it's literally a click away to go to those chapters 16, again I believe 39, which we took the time there to explain a little more. But nonetheless, last week, if you recall, we did, just to appreciate what this chapter is telling us, that so we did take some time to explain, and in brief, again, this piece was cut off, meaning that we even finished this very piece over here, saying that the Elam Habriya, because the Bina of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is the Bina of Atzilus, nests in Elam Habriya, so when a person serves HaKadosh Baruch Hu based on a passion, or with a passion, which is based on an intellectual appreciation of a matter, so his Torah mitzvahs ascends on high to Elam Habriya. I'm going to keep it at that right now because we took all the time last week. You could literally click away to see last week. What does it mean elevating to Elam Habriya? What does it mean the Torah mitzvahs need to be elevated? Again, everything we spoke about. And therefore we're just culminating this point. We're just bringing this point home again. And what does it mean to Elam Habriya? What does it mean a Torah mitzvah elevating itself to a particular world? But as we mentioned, it's about being elevated closer and closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that makes a difference, again, as we mentioned, in every relationship. There's something when you imbue the action with heart and soul and mind, the action becomes a different type of action. It's a qualitatively different type of action. It makes a deeper impact in the context of gift, in the context of one person doing something for the other. He's touched deeper. The more the investment, the heart and soul investment of the giver, that's how much it reflects on the receiver. And so too in this case, we're bringing Hashem his Torah mitzvahs, not only, so to say, Torah mitzvahs which are dry. Can't really say Torah mitzvahs dry because Torah mitzvahs, as we mentioned, is the real body. The body of the bird is the Lashon brought in Tanya before. It's the real deal is the Torah mitzvahs, not the sensation associated which goes along with the performance of Torah mitzvahs. Like we mentioned, if someone only is able to emote with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but he says, I'm not going to put on those boxes or that parchment on my door. Boxes naturally in the context of tefillin, parchment on my door referring to mezuzah. No, that doesn't work because then the main substance is the actual Torah, the actual performance of Torah, and the actual performance of mitzvahs. Needless to mention. But that itself, when it's imbued, when it's infused with the sensation of love and passion towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it elevates the Torah mitzvahs yet deeper and deeper within HaKadosh Baruch Hu, depending how it's absorbed, if through the innate and inherent love, or a love which is based on appreciation, understanding the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. As such, it elevates the Torah mitzvahs to the world of Bria, meaning ultimately closer within HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So this is where we formally left off. Here the Alter Rebbe says something very interesting. The till now, so again, we're talking about those two levels of loves, which the Alter Rebbe introduced in this very chapter. The love of, right, you recall, the love of the Hashem being Meker Chayenu, the source of our life, this Hashem being Avinu Ha'amiti, our true Father, which has also a reflection how a Yid reacts to this love. There's this, which, not to forget, Alter Rebbe writes in Zayir, the passion or the interest or that drive of the Yid to wake up in the middle of the night to learn Torah till the morning, because he knows his soul, Hashem's soul, is in Torah. Just like we gravitate to our own soul, which gives us our physical life and vitality, and we always want that harmony between soul and body, so to a Yid is driven to connect to his soul, which is ultimately Torah, because Hashem put his soul into Torah, right? Anechi Hashem Lekecha, Anon Nafshi Ksavis Yavis, Hashem said, I wrote my soul into Torah. So he learns Torah. Again, this what the Zayir mentions in the context of this love. Wakes up in the middle of the night, he wants to connect to his soul, to the soul energy. So then obviously the Avinu Amitis obviously has ramifications. The person appreciates Hashem as our true Father, and there's and that naturally arouses within the Yid that cleave, that drive to be together, constantly together with his Father, appreciating Hashem as a father figure, similarly the Father's compassion and love and care and so on and so forth. Again, as elaborated in the previous classes, we're speaking about the two avos, the two loves which Alter Rebbe introduces in this chapter. But then Alter Rebbe goes further and he says, well, if it's a love, these loves are based on the fact that they're inherent, they're innate, they're embedded by who the Yid is as a chelik of the Kamimal, part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or it's something that the Yid formally ponders on these two ideas, the fact that Hashem is Chayenu, our Nafshenu, our soul, the stream of vitality, and then Hashem being Avinu Mamash Amiti, that great virtue which exists within the Ava, or the virtuous dimension of this Ava, when it comes as a result of his Beinunus meditation and pondering, as we mentioned, and associated with Elam Abriya and so on and so forth. But Alter Rebbe adds over here, V'lei Aid, and more so, for that matter, these two Avos really are associated with the Atzilus type of Ava. Now, what does it mean, Atzilus type of Ava? If you remember, the Alter Rebbe himself writes in the previous chapter, in Perek Mem Gimel, that there's a concept of Ava Rabbah, which usually we can't even reach it there on our own. This is coming directly from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You can see it in the 43rd chapter, pretty much in the middle of the chapter. V'hinei bi'ava zu, if you follow the text, and you can see and find the actual class, or you could just see it in the text itself as it's translated on site. V'hinei bi'ava zu, there's two madrei, Ava Rabbah and Ava Ta'alam, and Ava Rabbah comes from above, when a person is perfect in his, not only observance, but in his reverence and Yirah Shamayim, is God-fearingness, if you will, with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He's Shalom B'Yirah, he's complete in Yirah Shamayim. Hashem bestows upon him as a gift this Ava Rabbah. What does it mean Hashem bestows upon him? We say Hashem bestows upon him, Hashem, which is associated with the world of Atzilus, we spoke about it many times, Adam Ha'eli, the supreme Adam, the primordial Adam, that's Atzilus. So when we say Hashem himself bestows this Ava upon the person which is complete with Yirah Shamayim, that's the Ava coming directly from Atzilus. And remember, we spoke so many times, and it's brought so many places, the difference of Atzilus and Bria, and Bria Yitzir Asiyah, the subsequent three worlds, are vast. As we mentioned, there's no comparison of the experience of Atzilus to the experience even of the higher worlds like Bria. How much more so from Yitzira and so on. Because Atzilus is the expression Lo Yigur Chara, there's no Ra, even subtle, there's no evil in Atzilus, even a subtle Ra, which explained the Chassidus, no Yeshus at all, not even subtle Yeshus, something standing out of the domain and experience and spirit of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's Kuli Lukus, it's all God, godliness, as the Lashon many times expression, it's a world which hosts the Ein Sof. Therefore, even the Midas of Atzilus have an Ein Sof, an infinite component, because it's a world which houses the Ein Sof. So when you have the Ava coming from that world, bestowed from Atzilus towards the person, again, this is commensurate with the fact that the Yid himself cannot climb that ladder, because it's beyond the levels where a Yid can go on his own, because the maximum a Yid can do in his relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, even in his emotional relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is ponder, meditate on the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is the highest level within the structure of the human being, is his intellectual faculties. And therefore, and that it's right away that's a connection to Elam Abriya, where Bina is invested Mekanana Bekursai. The Bina of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Nes in the world of Bria. Beyond that is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the way he is for himself, by himself. Obviously, there's levels of HaKadosh Baruch Hu beyond Atzilus, because in the end of the day, as we spoke about this many times, Atzilus is ultimately an Olam Atzilus, by definition. Olam is Meloshin Elam V'Helam V'Hasher, like the Gemara says, the word term Olam means it conceals, it obscures the true, purest of reality of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. As we mentioned so many times, the fact you say a midah of chesed, midah is about medida. So on the one hand, Atzilus truly has this dichotomy. On one hand, it's a world which hosts, and everything about Atzilus is Ein Sof, especially you see in the Shari Yichud V'Emunah, that it writes everything over Malchus Atzilus, the last level, which ultimately, there's a Malchus, the way Malchus is in Atzilus, but namely Malchus is about Malchus Malchus Kol Elamim, drawing the energy to a lower and creating and establishing a lower reality. But everything beyond that is truly Ein Sof, in the words of the Alter Rebbe in Shari Yichud V'Emunah. So Olam Atzilus has this duality, true, but generally Olam Atzilus is a world like Yugur Chara. There's no even the most subtle type of Ra in Atzilus. It's a world that houses and hosts the Ein Sof. Hence, everything about Atzilus is Ein Sof. So this love, which you mentioned, is bestowed upon the person. The person doesn't reach there on his own. Hashem gives it as a maton, as a gift to the one who's complete in Yirah Shamayim and fearing HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And again, naturally following suit with his fear in a perfect observance which is scrupulous in mitzvahs asay, in the positive mitzvahs. This is what he is meant to do. This is what he is meant to stay away from. So the Lashon Alter Rebbe, and again he aligns it with that Ava b'tanugim, as you saw. If you remember, again it's a click away. No need to elaborate much. The difference of Ava b'tanugim, a delightful love, a love associated with delight, pleasure, as opposed to Ava kirish be'esh, a love which is a fiery, passionate desire, drive. Driving means to say you're not there yet. You're driven to something, as opposed to Ava b'tanugim. You're there already. This takes over your whole. You're not going from one. You're not being driven from one area to another. You're there already. You're appreciating the entire experience of pleasure and love. In other words, the love is a delightful love, a love with total delight and a total pleasure, a total ecstasy. And as we mentioned in Perek Yud, again, you could look at it in the ninth. You click to the ninth, actually the 10th, the ninth chapter, not the 10th. The ninth chapter, it's about 2/3 before the end of the ninth chapter. He there explains the difference of Ava Rabo over Ava Kirish Be'esh. Ava Kamayim, calm, because you're there already. You're basking in the experience of delight and pleasure, as opposed to Kirish Be'esh. You're passionate to something. You're driven to something. So I would just suggest again to see. I do recall that we did elaborate. It's been a while, but we did elaborate on this in that chapter, again 2/3 into the 9th chapter, which again is a click away. And we did also speak about this quite extensively in the 43rd chapter, where Alter Rebbe again notes this Ava b'tanugim, which is directly connected with Atzilus. So Alter Rebbe says that these two Avos, these two expressions of love, which I introduce in this chapter, of Hashem being Meker Chayinu, the source of our life, our soul, and Hashem being Avinu Mamash Amiti, our true Father, is, even though we explained it the whole time that it's inherent, and then also we can make it experience much more exciting and with much more passion if we ponder, meditate on this. Again, we use our bina to use beinanus, meditating and pondering in this, in these two concepts. It aggrandizes the passion. It makes the passion much more intense, and the drive of the Yid to HaKadosh Baruch Hu as such, the love much more intense. Nonetheless, Alter Rebbe says, so till now we didn't introduce this two avos in association with Ava Rabo. That term Ava Rabo, you remember Ava Rabo coming directly from Atzilus, and here the Alter Rebbe says, B'lei Eid, you should know that these Beis B'chinas Ava Nal includes B'chinas Ava Rabo, are also a combination of that Ava Rabo, which we mentioned previously, more recently in chapter 43. And again, there's the connection, the correlation of 43 and 44. Even though 44, the Alter Rebbe establishes a new chapter with new terminologies, defining two new levels of Ava. But if you remember, also in Perek Mem Gimel, there is also the overall two levels of Ava, Ava Rabba, and then Ahavas Olam. So then the Alter Rebbe says within the Ava, the expression of love of Yitkodesh Baruch Hu introduces again these two concepts, these two types of Avas, two types of love. The Hashem being Meker Chayenu Navinu Amiti Mamash, the source of our life, our soul, and our true Father. Here the Alter Rebbe says you should know that this Ava Rabba idea is also, these two Avas is also included within Ava Rabba. Means to say the sensation, the experience could be an experience of Ava Betanugim. In other words, these two loves per se could be expressed within the human being, in this case the Yid, because there is something in these two avos which are in essence connected and as such extended to the Yid, to the human being, or to the Yid, as an Ava Rabba type of love, with all the advantages and virtues of the Ava Rabba, again, the way where it comes from, which is Elam Atzilus, and the way it's expressed, that the person experiences an enormous delight, an enormous pleasure, a sensation of true ecstasy that he's completely engulfed within the experience, as opposed to being driven to something else. The Ava, Kirish Be'esh, again, like the fiery love mentioned in Perek Tes, and again in some of the previous chapters. So let's see it in the text. These two types of love includes, they're included in B'chinas Ava Rabba, from the level of Ava Rabba, which we mentioned in the previous chapter, which is far greater. And again, this is not a piece of information Alter Rebbe is telling you over here. He explained it there in the 9th chapter and in the previous chapter. They're way greater, far greater, and far more qualitative from a fear and a love which is based in intellectual comprehension. As we mentioned before, this is the love which is defined as Avas Olam, a love coming from the human being appreciating HaKadosh Baruch Hu via HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or as Hashem being Memale Kol Almin. Again, look in the 43rd chapter, or Seiviv Kol Almin, but again, nonetheless connected to Almin, Hashem being transcendent from Olamus, but yet negating Olamus from Hashem somewhat, places that connection even in the Hizbaininess of Seiviv Kol Almin, the transcendent dimension of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, still is associated with the term Avas Olam, love coming via Olam, and via the person who ponders, which is part of Olam as well. He ponders in this greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He becomes excited with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He develops and is able to extract a love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. All that packaged into the word Avas Olam. Ava Rabba is a total different experience. And that's why, if you remember again, Alter Rebbe says this is something that the Yid himself cannot reach. It's a gift bestowed because it's coming from a deeper place within HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which the Yid on his own cannot reach. And that's why it's categorized as a gift. Hashem bestows this gift. With the Yid, which is complete in his Yid Shamayim, now you're able to feel that energy with me, Hashem, in other words, a very close, knit, intimate experience with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is far greater than that Avas Olam. Which this is, it's like 2.5 lines or 3 lines, but yet you think about it, this is really revolutionary, because the Alter Rebbe is really telling us that not only overall in our love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Yid could reach Ava Rabba, or the Yid could be privileged to Ava Rabba. Yid cannot reach it on his own. Let's not make no mistake. But nonetheless, it's the fact that the fact that the Yid could experience a Yid and a Neshama b'guf, and Neshama even invested in body, with all its bodily, the whole bodily reality, the confined of the body and the fact where the body is placed in this physical world, it means a Yid walking with 2 feet in Elam Hazeh could experience that Ava b'tanugim, that his delight is in God and godliness. But the Alter Rebbe says it's not only overall love and dveikus and a adherence with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's these particular expressions of love, the way that a Yid could really find so much delight and pleasure, he's feeling the stream of energy coming from HaKadosh Baruch Hu into his system. In the context of Hashem being Meker Chayim, the source of our life. In the context of HaKadosh Baruch Hu being the nafshenu, our soul. And so too when it comes to Avinu Amiti, like a little child, the greatest delight just be in the parents' bosom, the parents' arms, a child being close to his father. It is such a calm expression of such calm and calmness, tranquility, serenity. It's something, it's like not even running to it, it's just there. It's just a certain dynamic of comfort in that experience of oneness in the arms of his father. And a Yid could really experience that, though that strength, that calm, that serenity is in the end of the day a gift, like any other avarabba, but it can exist when someone is shalom b'yirah shamayim, someone is completing yirah shamayim, yet he's a human being, 2 feet on the ground, body not divested, soul not divested of body, soul divested in body, could literally experience this sensation, which is the great virtue in the experience of Avarabba over Avasailam, as we explained in the previous chapter. So nonetheless, Alter Rebbe concluded Perik. Interestingly enough, he said it doesn't mean like somebody, for example, so one, for example, is making $1 million. Then you say, you know what, really, that $1 million could bring you $1 billion. Or here, I have something else worth $1 billion. You're right now a billionaire, and then say, I'm a billionaire. There's no point of celebrating myself as being a millionaire, because once I'm at the highest level of billions, or at least by now it's towards the highest levels of the definition of wealth. So what do I need to celebrate myself being? Obviously I have the millions as well, but namely I'm a billionaire. Comes the Alter Rebbe, and here also one would suggest once these two avas could be expressed in a way of ava rabba, that ava b'tanugim. So is there any advantage of attaining or identifying these two levels of ava as avas eilam, meaning to say my mind investing with meditation and pondering on these two concepts of Hashem being Meker Chayim and Avinu Mamash Amiti? Is there advantage to that? One would suggest no, because I reached already, to be more accurate, I was gifted already that experience of these two avas, the way they come with the sensation of ava rabba, a total delight and pleasure in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, appreciating the concept again of Hashem being Meker Chayim and Avinu Mamash Amiti. So what is the need to be mizbein and to use my bina, my understanding, my knowledge, to meditate and ponder in these two concepts, which would evoke an ava called avas eilam, if I already have the ava b'tanugim? Comes the Alter Rebbe and says there's something very special of avas eilam, because the fact that avas eilam is associated with a fiery passion, that is something very special in the relationship of a Yid with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Conversely, when there's ava b'tanugim, there is no passion, because again, as we mentioned, the whole difference of ava b'tanugim, you're already there. You're not driven to something. You're already experiencing the delight. You're experiencing the pleasure. But when you're you're in that experience of ava rabba, one way or another, you're lacking the passion to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In this case, HaKadosh Baruch Hu as Meker Chayenu and Avinu Mamashu Amiti. There's lacking the passion, lacking the fire, lacking that drive, and therefore the Alter Rebbe concludes this chapter saying that even one reached this experience of these two avos in a manner of ava rabba, nonetheless there's something very special and virtuous about attaining and connecting to these two avos, these two expressions of love, via the avos olam, via men pondering, meditating on these concepts as such, being driven to it. Again, the Ava Kirish Be'esh as opposed to Ava B'Tanugim. Let's see it inside. Nonetheless, one has to make an effort with his seichel, with his intellect, to perceive and to reach also this level of Avas Eilam. Again, this term, we explained it just in the last few moments, and namely the previous chapter, the difference of Avas Eilam and Ava Rabba. Haba, which comes mi'atvuna v'das b'gdulas Hashem, which comes from expansive understanding and das, knowledge in the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And what is the gain? What is the advantage? Kidei lahagdil meduras eisha avo, in order to expand the, literally translated, the torches of fiery love, berish be'esh, with a flame of fire, v'shalheves azo v'lav ha'oila shamayma. With shalheves is also a flame, an intense, strong flame that is kind of out of control and ascends all the way to heaven, which again, a component of fire, which we all can relate to. Fire is that it just doesn't stand in one place, especially it's given the opportunity to grow and to expand. And to the extent sometimes the flames are beyond control, and you look at the flames, they look like they're shooting up to heaven. And so too, when the Ava comes from these Beinenus, from meditation and clarity and transparency, and these two concepts, again, Hashem being Avinu Mamash Hamite Meker Chayenu, what it does, it aggrandizes the fiery flame and as a Lashon Alter Rebbe Medura sage, the torch and the fiery flame, a flame which is out of control, Eila Shamaymo, like a flame which ascends to heaven, and that is what the Yid experiences, an enormous passion and drive to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which we can all appreciate does not exist in the Ava B'Tanugim. Because in the end of the day, the Ava B'Tanugim, there is a certain calm, a certain tranquility. Yes, you're basking in this delightful experience, 100% granted. We could all appreciate it's so much deeper and so much more profound, and the connection is so much more real. Nonetheless, their passion, you're lacking the passion, you're lacking the excitement, you're lacking the drive, the drive towards this which you love, in this case HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And what is the advantage when there's a passion, a fiery passion and a fiery drive? Mayim rabim lo yuchlu lechabes, and the great waters cannot extinguish these great fires. And Naharis is a quote of the pasuk, Naharis lo yishtafua, the great waves and the great rivers cannot calm these fires. And we won't have time to finish the entire chapter. God willing, this Kamiut Alter Rebbe is saying in the end of the day, because it's not only about the experience of the neshama, it's not only about the experience of the Yid. This experience of the Yid is in a framework of a Yid which is trying to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as the soul again invested in body. This body finds itself in this Olam Hazeh, this physical world, a world which totally on its own obscures the reality of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. As we mentioned so many times, is a world that is created and continues to be created by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hence, there's no independence by definition of anything. In other words, nothing is out of the domain of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Even this very physical world, which on its own does not demonstrate the oneness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is all an extension of the oneness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and naturally doesn't have independence. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu created this world in a way that the truth does not appear on the surface. and we have to find and we have to dig the truth and reveal the truth that exists within ourselves and within our animal soul and an Olam Hazeh. This is the purpose of creation. As we mentioned so many times, Hashem wanted a dwelling place in this very physical world, in a world which on its own does not demonstrate the oneness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the Yid, through his Torah, through the Torah and through mitzvahs, to reveal the godly reality which exists inherently in Olam. So, in the end of the day, any way you look at it, it's a challenge. So when you're talking about the experience of the neshama itself, so once the neshama is experiencing this ava rava b'tanugim, there's no point of the neshama trying to find a drive and a passion and a fire towards something when it's there already. But because in the end of the day, the neshama is invested in a body, and a body has other distractions. There's the animalistic inclinations and cravings and the covets and lusts, as we also so much we all aware about. And this is defined in Shir Hashirim as Maim Rabim, the great waters, the stormy waters, just like somebody is on the sea, the stormy waters bring him back, and it causes a lot of distraction in his objectives and his goals towards reaching his ultimate destination. So too, as a Yid serves HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this world, the Shir Hashirim is telling us there's the Maim Rabim, there's tumultuous waters which can disturb a Yid in his Avodas Hashem. And therefore, it's so important that the Yid not only experiences this Ava Rabba, but the Yid experiences this fiery love, which by definition is a level lower than the Ava Rabba, but it's important that the Yid is able to extract a passion, a fiery love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That passion and that fire, what it does is it doesn't allow the stormy waters, the distractions, which comes from the fact that the Yid is an Olam Hazeh, his physical world, and his neshama is invested in a body which again has its own desires, its own cravings, which try to pull a Yid in a different directions. These are the tumultuous waters what the Shir Hashirim speaks about. So if the Yid neshama would only experience the Ava Rabba, that calm and tranquil, that love associated with tranquility and that serene experience of the neshama, so even by definition it's a much deeper expression of love, because you have the Maim Rabim, we're trying to extinguish the connection of a Yid to the love of a Yid to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So that Ava Tanugim could not withstand those stormy waters, and the only thing which could withstand stormy waters is fire. Just like physically, when you have a great, strong fire, a torch, or the lashon here, lava oila shamayma, a flame which ascends to heaven, it's not easy to extinguish it. As the lashon in Shir Hashirim, Maim Rabim lo yuchlu l'chabes es ha'ava, that the waters cannot extinguish the love a Yid has to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because the love is so strong, is so fiery, and is so passionate. True, yes, water could extinguish fire, but if it's a grand fire, very strong fire, right, you